Because we have to clerk if we're not coming. I always look.
I think
She is the clerk of this commission.
Okay. Huh? Yeah.
All right, are we ready?
Yes.
All right, it is 5:30, so we are going to call the November 1st, 2023 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. First item before us is approval of
Roll
the
call.
October. Oh, sorry, yes. Sorry. I'm excited to get going and into it. So, Ms. Blankenhorn, please call the roll.
Ms. Boucher,
Here.
Ms. Cunningham, Mr. Percy,
Here.
Mrs. Simpson,
Here.
Mr. Smith, Mrs. Arianata,
Here.
Mr. Eister. We do have a quorum of 4.
All right, now that we've done that, and I didn't get too far ahead of us, the first item before us is approval of the October 4th, 2023 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. I would entertain a motion regarding approval of those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Boucher and a second by Ms. Simpson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. With that, the October 4th, 2023 Board of Zoning Appeals minutes are approved as presented. Next item before us is 2023-BZA-22 bylaws.
So the city administration would like each board and commission to have bylaws. You have been given the introductory that the mayor put together. So
Okay.
he would like you to review them, give any feedback, and then we will proceed after you've had a chance to review those. So at this time, if you want to table it until another meeting, then we can reconvene.
So there was one thing highlighted. Do we need to decide what that word is, or is that going to be the way it's worded?
No, we can, what we would suggest is that you have the opportunity to review them, go
Okay.
through them, and then we can have a discussion about them at a subsequent meeting before adopting, and we can change them at that point.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify if we needed to do anything on that.
So
Okay.
do we need to make a motion to table?
Yes.
Made a motion to table that item. So I would entertain a motion to table the 2023-BZA-22 bylaws.
A motion to table.
Ms. Boucher makes a motion to table that. Is there a second? Ms. Arianata seconds that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That didn't need a roll call vote, did it?
No.
Okay. All right. The next item before us is 2023-BZA-23, 202 South Edgewood Road, a variance for fence height. Is there a proponent of the proposed variance request before us? Please come up and be sworn in. Read the card there.
Well, okay, I already talked to, I'm the
He-
attorney.
His client is going to go and swear in, and he's going to ask him some questions to.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
so, Mr. Stoller? Oh,
Oh, I was gonna do an opening statement first, and then I'll call Mr. Stoller to testify with the exhibits. I've already gone over those with your law director.
just as a note, the opening statement is not evidence, it's
That's
just a
correct.
roadmap to that.
Okay.
Yeah, its purpose, yes, is to give you an idea where I'm going. We'll go from there.
Could you introduce yourself so I have your name,
You
please?
sure can. Yes, my name's John Burton, B-U-R-T-O-N.
Thank you.
And I'm an attorney from Mansfield. So as the opening statement, and thank you for giving us this opportunity, but the main thing I'd like to bring to your attention that this is area variance, excuse me, only. And I broke it out for 2 parts. The first part is a area variance for the side and rear yard of the property owned by the Stollards. And the second request is for the front yard, which is a partial extension. It does not block the access to the property through the driveway. It's only partial on the front yard.
So what you're actually going to be asking for is 2 separate variances? Is that my understanding? Because that's not what we were presented with.
Well, what I filed, which was filed in the application, has it two requests. They're numbered 1 and 2.
Okay.
that's what's helpful from the opening statement, to give you a guideline where I'm coming from and why. If I can explain, anything away, I'd be glad to do that. So the place to start is that your zoning code allows for 6-foot fences. What we're asking for in request number 1, which would be the side and rear yard, is 1 foot. They go from 6 to 7 feet. The second request is the front yard, which your code allows for 3 feet. We're asking to go from the 3 to the 7 feet, or 4-foot increase on the front yard. So they got them broken out into categories for you. Now, the fence itself, when you'll have the pictures to look at, maybe you've already seen them, is a steel woven fence. It's transparent for the most part. It's not a privacy fence. The light can shine through it. It doesn't block noise. It does, like I said, it doesn't block people driving by from looking into the property. It has one purpose only, and that purpose is to prevent deer from entering the property where the fence is located. Now, again, the important distinction in the request is that 6 foot on the request extension of 1 foot around the sides and the rear, and then the increase from 3 to 7 feet, or a 4-foot increase on the front. And again, the point we would make with this board is that we're asking for something that has actually worked to keep the deer out. But the testimony will be from Mr. Stollard. He has tried many things, repellents, fences, cages, all that kind of stuff around the plantings themselves, but they have not been effective. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that this is not just a little, I should say, it's not a residential lot in a high-density area of the city. This area is on the very corner of the southeast corner of the city that butts up against Pleasant Township, and it's actually a 2-acre parcel. Very low density, and it's butting up against what we call a wooded area where the deer seem to congregate and enter his property. And then the final thing, which I will bring to your attention, which we filed with that, was that in 2014, this board did grant a height variance from up to 8 feet for the same purpose of deer control for the property on Vine Street owned by the Noonan family. So again, we will be introducing that particular allowance that you made as a board back in 2014. But with this observation, as you look at it and listen to the testimony from Mr. Stollard, is the fact is that the fence that my client has put up is certainly less, I think, visible. It's not in a densely residential area. That's number one. Number two is that the neighbors certainly have approved this fence. There is the precedent from the Noonan property. And the last thing I would bring to your attention is this that's changed a little bit, is that when you granted that variance to the Noonans in 2014, you used the standard of undue hardship. That's a higher standard than what we're asking for you to use here. Is called an area variance based on practical difficulties. And the standards have been laid out in the draft ordinance, that I have provided for you in your packet. Again, those considerations would be a lesser standard, something that you should be considering far less than what you previously granted for something very similar for the same purpose of deer control back in 2014. So that is the general nature of what we'll be presenting the evidence. And then I'm just going to allow Mr. Stafford to come up, if you would.
Oh,
And then you can stand, well, tell you what, let's have you stand by the microphone. Oh, you have to be sworn in first. Good point. And you probably raise your right hand.
My name is James R. Stallard. I live at 202 South Edgewood Road here in Mount Vernon. And I affirm that my testimony is truthful to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God, or under penalty of perjury.
Thank you. Okay, so you already testified or stated who you are, which is a good start, of course. And can you tell the board where do you live and what property do you own?
I live at 202 South Edgewood Road. I live on a property owned by my wife, Joan B. Stallard, trustee.
Okay. When that property was, what date was the property originally purchased?
The actual closing took place on April the 1st, 1975, and the deed was recorded the following day, April the 2nd.
And in that deed, both you and your wife were the owners of the property, is
That
that
is
correct?
correct.
Okay. And then, did you do some estate planning later on?
We did. In 2013, we transferred ownership of the property to my wife's trust.
Okay. But since 1975, you and your wife have been the sole residents of the property?
The sole human residence of the property, that is correct.
Yes. And the acreage, according to the deed, which I'm going to mark as Exhibit 1, is 2 acres, is that correct?
More or less, that's correct.
Okay. Would you be able to explain to the board how your property is situated, keeping in mind what the city limits are for Mount Vernon and where it's situated?
Our 2-acre lot is actually a cigarette lot. That's the way it would normally be classified. It wouldn't be permitted now, but it was laid off about 1900. It's much longer than it is wide. On the east side, the short side, it abuts Pleasant Township. On the south side, one of the 2 long sides, it abuts Pleasant Township. And in the front, it abuts Pleasant Township for about 20 feet on the southwest corner. So we touch Pleasant Township essentially on 3 sides.
So could I just clarify, is the entire property is in the city of Mount Vernon, however?
The lot itself is in the city of Mount Vernon. It abuts, as I said, the county.
Okay. I'm going to show you our Exhibit number 2. And, excuse me,
You're using letters?
2, yes.
B.
Oh, you want to go with
Yeah, you're using letters.
letters? Okay.
First one should have been A. I apologize for that.
Is that already A to F, the photos?
Yeah.
So it should be starting after F, correct? Because you've already,
You marked on the stuff
On
you
the
submitted
top here.
Other.
yeah,
The
you've
top
already
right.
Okay.
given us A to F.
Got it. That would be the pictures. We're going to get to that. Okay, so we'll go with G. So to correct the record, for the deeds which are certified are with G. We're going to run an alphabet. And then I will show you what has been marked as Exhibit H. Can you identify that for the board, please?
This is an aerial of the subject property.
Okay. And the property fronts on Edgewood?
It does.
We don't have copies.
Yeah, I know.
We have,
Okay, because, I mean, we're being given all this, you're not actually letting us see it, so it's
Yeah.
hard for us to know what you're actually talking
That's-
about,
This is
so.
that copy.
I understand what A to F, but he's got G
He's-
and he's got
And he's
other
on
stuff that
G
we
and
don't
H.
have, and it's kind of
That's all right.
difficult
We'll
for,
get to it.
you want us to work off of stuff we don't have, it's a little challenging.
I understand. We'll get there.
Actually, I believe this has been submitted.
That's okay. That's okay. But looking at the picture, your frontage is on Edgewood, is that correct?
Correct.
And directly behind the property is Pleasant Township property?
That is correct. Wooded.
Okay. And that's a fairly accurate representation of what you have, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So this is the Exhibit H.
What is Exhibit G? I haven't,
it's a copy.
you
of
have
the-
that?
It's
Okay,
the
deed,
deed.
all right.
Yeah.
The been certified. Okay.
Pass it down to Mr. Barnes.
We got,
You got H?
Okay.
yeah, we got G and H.
Okay. All right.
Now, previously, there were exhibits, which were the pictures, exhibits A through F. Those were up there on the, you see that? You had previously testified about those, I believe.
Last year,
Yes, here. Those pictures are accurate representation of your property?
they are.
Okay, and which shows the fence, is that right?
It does.
Okay. And there has been any change in those conditions?
So I just like to clarify that the fence was already built, correct? And it was built without a permit? Could we confirm that?
I'll get the chance to ask some questions later.
Okay, because I mean, yeah,
A lot of questions.
not everyone was here at that previous meeting, so I think that it
appreciate
needs to be stated that the fence
that's-
is built and it was done without a
For
permit.
this
so-
procedure, then, your law director has the right to cross-examine. So I'm presenting it mine. and-
Okay.
And they're gonna ask questions, they get the chance to ask questions too.
Yeah, well, definitely. Okay. So the pictures A through F are a correct, accurate representation of your property, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Since 1975, when the property was originally purchased, has there been any change in the exterior use or condition of the property? Have you experienced any changes?
Yes.
What would that be?
The most significant change has to do with the deer population,
Okay.
which
Go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
about 1985 began to explode. For the first 10 years that we lived there, we scarcely ever saw a deer. But after 1985, there was a steady increase in the number of deer.
Okay. Can you tell the board the estimate of deer that you would see on a regular basis at the property? The number?
At least daily,
Yes.
at least daily, we encountered deer on our property. There was a time when I lost count at 35 deer in our backyard, which is less than a quarter of an acre. I recently, actually last year in August, our neighbor to the north reported seeing 14 deer at one time in our backyard.
That person isn't gonna come and testify, are they?
That's correct.
Okay.
Recently, I saw more than 12 deer at one time in our neighbor's yard to the south. We no longer have deer in our yard.
Okay, the fact that you don't see deer in your yard now is, what reason is that?
The fence is effective in excluding deer.
Okay.
They can come up the driveway, which is not enclosed within the fence, and they can look at the fence, which they do, but they can't. Theoretically, they could come through, but they haven't tried to go through.
Okay. So the purpose of the fence is solely to prevent deer entering your property?
That is correct.
And when the deer did enter your property, what did you experience on the property?
Over the course of time, we endured greater and greater destruction of our vegetation in our yard, our shrubbery. There's essentially nothing that deer won't eat. And what they don't eat, they walk on. And in winter, they rub up against things, for example, like rhododendron, which when they're frozen actually crack and then die. We moved there, and it was an old yard to start with, and it's been it was one of my aims, our aims, to have a mature yard. In addition to destruction of the vegetation, we had deer droppings everywhere in the grass. It was not only unsightly, it was unsanitary.
This would be extensively throughout the yard, front and back?
It was in the places where the deer walked and where the deer grazed primarily. That would be primarily in the back, behind the, east of the garage, and in the front yard, west of the house, between the house and the street.
Okay.
But it was everywhere.
And what kind of, did you try, before putting up the fence, did you try to prevent damage to your property?
I did.
Can you tell the board what you did?
Yes. I have to remember when we moved into the house, soon to be 50 years ago. I was quite a bit younger. So the first thing that I did was I began to put cages around our plants. More and more cages over time to keep the deer from eating and also from rubbing up against the plants. That's particularly important for the rhododendron, which we've managed to cultivate in our yard. So the caged plants were included all of the plants in the front yard that weren't trees, big trees. All small trees had to be caged as well to keep the deer, the bucks, from rubbing the bark off.
And if they rubbed the bark off, what happened to the trees?
Well, if I caught it in time, I could paint the area that was rubbed clean of bark and salvage the tree.
But if not,
If I weren't if I didn't do that in a timely manner, the tree, that was the end of it. It killed it.
did you lose trees?
I wouldn't call them trees. They were seedlings, small seedlings, particularly Japanese maples.
Did you lose them?
Yes.
And you had to pay to purchase to replace them?
No, they were seedlings which I had cultivated from
Okay,
this tall.
got it, okay. So how many years did you try to control the deer through other means?
Well, really got very serious about trying to control the deer about 1990, putting cages in, and that would one cage after another as the deer became an increasing problem over time. That only stopped when everything was caged. But as I mentioned before, over the course of that time, I got older. So having all of our plants caged became a greater and greater burden for getting access to the plants and tending them.
Okay, estimate to the board, how many cages are we talking about here?
Well, some of them were, I was able to encase several plants in single cages.
Okay,
But there were no plants in our front yard and side yard to the north that were not caged, none. How many separate cages there were, I'd have to think about that for a moment. I would say probably more than 10, but one of those caged areas included more than 25 plants.
okay. Since this period of time, and I would assume that was 48 years ago when you purchased the property,
Yes.
are you getting any younger?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Regrettably, I wish I could figure out how to do that, but that doesn't work.
Okay, so how are you able, or were you able, as you got older, to use the cages?
It's a matter of pardon.
He's already
Bernard.
testified to this.
I mean-
So I understand your desire to create a record. However, he's already testified to this, and we'd like to move
And,
this
and
along.
we're
And
volunteers. We're giving our time for this. I understand. We understand why. I think we all understand why he wants the fence.
All right.
I
Okay.
think that's clear to us.
All right. Besides the damage to the deer or to your property, are you aware of any health concerns that the deer create?
I am.
And what are they?
Lyme's disease spread by deer ticks and deer carry ticks.
And so in your opinion, since the fence is put up, has the fence been effective in controlling or preventing deer?
Yes,
Okay. Now, is this fence constructed in any way to create a privacy barrier between you and adjoining landowners?
as you can plainly see, it's essentially transparent.
Okay. So it doesn't, to your opinion, does not block any vision or light?
It does not.
Okay. Does it prevent any other animals from crossing?
It easily allows cats to come through. We have squirrels, chipmunks, skunks, raccoons, opossums that are able to go through it with ease. We have had foxes. They're hard to see, but a fox could easily come through the fence,
Okay.
the lower portions of the fence.
Now, prior to putting up the fence, did you have any surveyor, anyone check out your boundary lines and make sure they were correct?
We had the property surveyed in 1982. I believe it's 1982.
Okay, and just prior to the fence itself being put up?
Yes. The original survey established the four corners, one of which was actually in place when we moved there. The pin was in place. The survey just confirmed the positions of the pins. It was not possible to see from one pin to the next pin on the long sides because the property drapes over a hill. So I had a professional engineer, surveyor, come back and set pins all along the north, south, and east sides.
Okay. And then the fence was put up, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that the city ordinance allows for 6 feet, is that correct?
Correct.
This fence is at 7 feet,
Correct.
so you're asking for a 1 foot increase.
Correct.
Why is 7 feet important as far as deer control goes, in your opinion?
Deer can leap. The higher the fence, the greater the reduction in probability that deer will be able to go over it. A 7-foot fence was the fence we could get. So that's why it's there.
Okay.
And it is effective in excluding deer.
Okay.
Now, it is also the case that in extremis, a deer could leap over our fence. So far, that has not happened.
And you're also asking for a front yard fence from going from the allowed 3 feet to 4 feet, is that correct?
Additional
Or
4 feet.
additional 4 feet, is that correct?
That is correct.
And can you tell the board why you've asked for that variance?
Deer can simply step over a 3-foot fence. That's it.
Okay.
And
And,
if they didn't want to just step over it, they easily can leap over it.
all right. And does the fence that was constructed in the front yard prohibit any access to your property through the driveway?
The fence is entirely north of the driveway, so that the access to the property has seen no change, and the part of the property that is south of the driveway is not fenced at all.
Okay. And, excuse me, and the location of the front fence was that laid out by the surveyor, is that correct?
The surveyor put the pins in, or showed where the pins were again,
Yes.
confirmed where the pins were across the front, and then it was very simple to stretch a straight line from pin to pin and
Okay.
put the and show the contractor place to put the posts east of the right-of-way
So
and east of the pins.
Okay. So I'll hand you what has been marked as Exhibit I,
Yes,
and did you prepare that particular document?
I did.
Okay. And what does it show?
This,
It's this one. Has his writing on it.
I believe this.
Right,
this
this
has
is it
been
right here.
submitted.
This is I.
Okay. Yes. This shows our property outlined in blue according to the tax map office. There is a red line running north to south across the front
Let me
part.
stop you right there. Up on the screen is a picture. Is that what you're testifying to?
Correct.
This would be Exhibit I. Go ahead.
The driveway is the white-looking area running from the east, from the Edgewood Road back to our garage, which you can see. And north of that driveway, you will see a black line following along the edge of the driveway and across the front, east of the right-of-way line. That is the position of the fence in that part of the yard. Otherwise, the fence follows the blue line starting at the southwest corner of the garage and going all the way around.
Okay, good. Now, did you have this fence, did you put up the fence or who put up the fence?
I had a contractor put up the fence.
I'll hand you what has been marked Exhibit J,
Yes.
and what is that?
This is a bill for the completion of the fence,
Okay.
installation of the fence.
Now, are you familiar with the fence that was constructed at 1117 East Vine Street here in Mount Vernon?
Yes.
Okay. And was that property owned by a John and Tanya Noonan?
To my knowledge, yes, and I
Okay.
believe that they still own it.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to view that property?
Well, it's easily viewed driving up and down Vine Street, which is a common way for us to go west from Edgewood Road.
Okay. And are you aware that this board did grant a variance for a fence for that particular property?
I learned that, yes.
Okay. And where is that fence located on that property, to best of your knowledge?
It's in the front yard.
Did you have an opportunity to review the application and the decision of this board regarding that approval of the fence?
I did.
And I will show you which should be Exhibit K. Can you identify that for me, please?
This is a request for a hearing on that structure in the front yard of 1117 East Vine.
Okay. And is that fence, I don't know if I asked you that question, but is the fence located in the front yard, is that correct?
Correct.
And how is it located? It's situated involving the right-of-way or the sidewalk of the property, according to the,
The
Document.
document is what the document is.
well, he's been there, he's seen it, so we're gonna ask him the question.
The aerial maps from the tax map office show that structure is across the right-of-way line.
I believe that that was part of your packet, if I
Is
remember.
that this one?
Oh, there's also an aerial photograph of that, should be.
No. It's the one of the other property.
Should be, it's a aerial photograph, well, that would work.
That one. You're right, Tanya. That one.
Yours looks different in black.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's it.
Don't see it.
Yeah, it looks a lot different in black and white.
That's the right-of-way line.
So I guess we'll call that L. Looking at that particular, we'll call that Exhibit L. Does that appear to
Was-
be an accurate representation of
Very
the
okay.
familiarity with that property?
I think that was,
It
Okay.
is.
This K was the
Okay,
application for this. So I think we're on L.
okay.
It gets confusing.
Yeah, sorry about
and
that.
how many are there altogether?
We're not quite done yet. We're getting close. To your knowledge, is that a fair and accurate representation?
It is.
Okay. All right. Have you had an opportunity to discuss with your neighbors the, whether or not there would be an objection to putting up the fence?
I did.
And who are your neighbors?
Ted and Tracy Kiger to the south, and Mike Weber and Kathy Barnes to the north.
Okay. And I believe that's an exhibit, we call that M. And they did send in letters, as I understand it.
They did.
Okay. Should be part of your packet. And then, are you familiar with any documentation regarding the amount of deer that are in Knox County?
Yes, sir, I am.
Have you had an opportunity to review Ohio Department of Natural Resource publications?
I have.
Have you actually seen a deer report for the hunting season stats of 2021, 2022?
I did.
Of the 88 counties in of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio, do you know where Knox County was rated?
It's one of the top 10 counties in which deer were killed, and in fact, it ranks number 4.
Was that B5?
Pardon?
Right there.
The number?
Yep.
More than 5,000 deer were killed in 21-22.
So we'll mark that.
In Knox County.
That was in my packet. We'll call that N.
That wasn't in our packet, was it?
No.
No, that wasn't in our packet.
Okay.
We don't. Mr. Breyer, clarification on evidence. Aren't we supposed to have an opportunity to review all evidence prior to a hearing?
That is correct.
Well, I can address that. We also have the right to present all the evidence that we have according to statute.
I mean, I think we understand what that he has deer in his yard and he would like a fence. Is that
That's exactly right.
we get why he wants a fence, we get all that.
Okay.
I think there is a thorough understanding of that he has deer that he would not like in his yard.
Okay.
I think I think we all get that.
Okay. Well, to give you the final exhibits, which I've already reviewed with the law director, which I don't believe requires anything other than marking, it would be, we have the notice of violation that was served on the Stallers, and the judgment entry that was given by the court in May of this year. And we'll mark that O. And then as the next exhibit P would be the the codified ordinances for both fencing and variances.
Those don't need to be marked as exhibits.
Okay,
Yeah,
they are what they are.
and they are the foundational documents.
Okay. And so P would be then, are you familiar with the dimensions of the road, the width of the right-of-way for Edgewood property?
The existing right-of-way is 40 feet wide.
Okay. And I would mark that as Exhibit P. To best of your knowledge, that is a correct drawing and prepared by the surveyor that you had used?
Yes.
Okay. In just one moment, I need to check something. And has been your testimony that you have been testifying as the husband of Joanne Stollard, is that correct?
Jones.
Or Joe, I'm sorry.
Correct.
And that as her husband, you have been testifying on her behalf as the trustee of the property?
Yes.
Okay. And everything that you have said is true and accurate as involving the property, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. Bronin, question for you. This, now that has not been adopted, correct?
It has not even been presented yet. I mean, it's
Okay.
just out in draft,
Okay.
and so it has no effect or no,
Okay. Well, I'm going to mark that as Q.
I'm not sure what relevance it has.
Right. Well, let whoever. So for the record, Exhibit Q will be the City of Mount Vernon Planning and Zoning Code, which I believe you have.
Again, that's a draft. That's not, we don't have that because that's not our code.
Yeah,
Oh, I understand. I mean, that's,
We can only address things under our current code,
okay,
so.
You're running out of letters.
yeah. We can always go to AABB. We're almost done, believe me. I get it. And then finally, you did in your application on behalf of your wife, Mr. Stollard, or Mrs. Stollard, you also provided questions, answers to the questions, and then a narrative, is that correct?
Correct.
And then can you just simply confirm for the record that you're incorporating to your testimony today the answers and the narrative that you prepared are true and accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you can think of?
Pardon?
Anything else?
Be interesting to know what they've got in their packet.
Oh, that's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No. Just give me 1 minute to review, please. I think we're almost done. See, that's- Okay, that's all my direct testimony, Mr. Bronin, if you want to cross.
Mr. Stollard, did you get a permit to build this fence?
No, sir, I did not.
You built the entire fence without a permit?
That is correct.
For the record, let me say I will object to the question because it has nothing to do with the variance while we're here. But go ahead, I understand.
It actually has a lot to do with this body's ability to grant variances, especially when it has to do with conditions that people have created themselves. So you didn't get a permit. How many days did it take to build the fence?
If the contractor's hydraulic driver had not malfunctioned, it would have taken a single day. They actually were there only parts of 2 days. but those 2 days were separated by a period, I don't remember exactly how long. It was more than a week when the hydraulic driver had to be repaired.
While the fence was being built, did you meet with a person by the name of Greg B. Miller?
Mr. Miller.
B. Miller.
Mr. B. Miller came to our property, yes.
And do you know that Mr. B. Miller works for the city of Mount Vernon?
Wait just a second. He came when after the contractor had been away for more than a week and was in the process of finishing the fence.
The fence was still under construction.
Correct.
And you know Mr. B. Miller works for the city.
He told me who he was.
And what did Mr. B. Miller tell you about the fence construction?
He told us that he asked first if we had a permit, and I told him I didn't know that I needed a permit. And he told me that we could not complete the fence.
Did you follow Mr. B. Miller's instruction?
I did not.
So you defied Mr. B. Miller.
Pardon me?
So you defied him. You said, no, I'm not going to do what you tell me.
I did not tell him no. I'm in the sense that you're using. I told him the contractor was there. I had waited 8 months for the contractor to come, and that since he was there, I wanted him to finish the fence and leave, which is what happened.
But despite being instructed to stop, you didn't.
Correct.
Okay. And you didn't stop because it wasn't convenient?
No, it was actually impossible to achieve the purpose of the fence with 1.5 sides not completed.
So you said that you didn't get a permit, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why not?
I did not know that I needed a permit.
Really? Have you ever been an official for the city of Mount Vernon?
I was a representative for regional planning for the city of Mount Vernon from 1998 through 2006 inclusive.
So 8, 9 years?
Pardon?
8 or 9 years.
It's 9 years.
And regional planning, what does regional planning do?
Regional planning did things that were different after I had been there, but in any case, it's supposed to deal with issues that have to do with water, sewer,
Does it
stormwater, things like that. It also dealt to some degree, but it's not limited to things that have to do with zoning in the townships. While I was there, the city of Mount Vernon never referred any zoning issue to the Regional Planning Commission, and that was a very sore point.
So you had you know that the townships that you dealt with, they had zoning. Did they require permits for those to do building?
The area for which I was responsible was the Land Use Committee. And we didn't deal directly very often with specific zoning requests unless it involved significant change. I never was involved with any fencing issue.
Did you think to ask before you had the fence built?
That's an interesting question. I had talked about fencing out the deer from our property for years, and no one ever said to me, "You need a
Did you ever come into the city and ask anyone in the engineer's office if you needed a permit?
I did not know that I needed to ask. So the answer to that is I did not ask. But in the time that I was discussing the possibility of putting up a fence, no one ever mentioned it. 2 different contractors with whom I consulted, neither mentioned that I needed to get a permit.
Did you specifically ask them if you needed to get a permit?
I didn't know that I needed to ask, did that I didn't know I needed to ask anything about that.
You talked about the Noonan's property, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You talked about the Noonan's property,
Correct.
and that fence is around their garden.
It is there to protect vegetation, correct.
It's around their garden. And you pointed to a map that you said showed that their fence was over the property line. Is that correct?
No, sir, that is not correct.
And what did you show then?
That is an aerial image showing the position of the fence on the Noonan property, and the fence goes, that image shows that the fence goes across the right-of-way line in the
Do you
front
know if
yard.
it actually does that? Have you ever had it served? Do you know if those right-of-way lines are accurate?
To the degree, those right-of-way lines are, I couldn't vouch for the accuracy of the right-of-way lines. That's not something I can comment on.
So you don't know if that's true or not. That's just on that picture.
I know that that is a map, that is a aerial image which I obtained from the tax map office.
And when you obtained it, did you ask if the property, if the right-of-way lines were 100% were accurate?
Actually, the Mr. Smith, who was in charge of the tax map office, brought that up, and he was kind enough to measure the width of the street, and he looked up the right-of-way line there, and clearly indicated the line was as close as it could be absent a survey.
Okay. And how high is the fence that you testified to there? How
That
high was the fence the Noonans put up?
the Noonans put up?
Yeah.
I believe that the original application is for an 8-foot fence. I have not measured it. I do not know.
Would you be surprised to know that they were only granted a 6-foot fence?
I don't have any idea about that.
And so, okay. Well, your lawyer has marked the document and it shows that it's a 6-foot fence. So, I have no further questions for
I have
this.
I would like to point out. Have you measured the actual height of the fence?
Yeah.
the answer. So, I finished my questions. Do any members of the board have questions for Mr. Stollard?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so I have or redirect.
Right? No, we don't. We don't do redirect.
You
Or-
don't
no.
don't allow redirecting.
No, I mean, everybody gets their shot and
You
move
just
on.
close it down from there.
I mean, if you want,
We still have other parts of, we have to ask for other, anyone else that wishes to
how much
speak.
longer do you
I
want?
was just going to ask him
I mean,
about the application that you testified. You're going by what the Noonan application was, is that correct?
Correct.
And that said 8 feet.
I believe that it did. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Okay, that's fine. The application is part of the evidence. All right.
So we have our exhibits, offer those all in,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't believe there's any further testimony.
Okay.
all right, are there any other proponents of the proposed variance request before us? Are there any opponents of the proposed variance request before us? Ms. Blankenhorn, is there any written or verbal communication regarding the proposed variance request before us?
Should I reread this from November? My staff report?
We can just, we would note that a staff report was presented with the previous case, which is case number 2022 BZA 37. Do we want to read it because I know there's people here?
I can.
Yeah, we'll just read that into the record, although we
All right.
will incorporate the prior exhibits from the previous case into this.
All right, thank you.
November 2nd, 2022, case 2022 BZA 37 for 202 South Edgewood Road, parcel number 66-06582.000. A 7 feet high fence with 8 feet high gates was constructed on the subject property without a permit on or about August 24th, 2022. The property maintenance enforcement officer stopped at the property the morning of August 25th and spoke with Mr. Stollard. The PMEO informed Mr. Stollard a notice had been sent the day before and informed him that a zoning permit is needed to construct a fence. Mr. Stollard said he would be in 8/26/2022 and indicated he would stop the contractor from finishing the he would not stop the contractor from finishing the fence. The PMEO reported the fence was finished the afternoon of 8/25/2022. A zoning permit was applied for on September 6th, 2022 for a 7 feet high fence with 8 feet high gates. The application was denied on September 14th, 2022, and the applicant was informed of the denial with an email generated from the city's iWork permit software. The applicant was advised they could apply for a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. The application for a hearing with the Board of Zoning Appeals was submitted October 4th, 2022. James R. Stollard requests for Joan B. Stollard, trustee, a variance for fence height in the R1 single-family district. The codified ordinances of the City of Mount Vernon, Ohio, Code Section 117802, regulations states, in any residential or OI district, no fence or wall shall exceed 6 feet in height, and no fence shall exceed 36 inches in height between the street right-of-way line and the building setback lines. Code Section 1160.02, Development Standards for R1 Single Family District, subsection A3, states the minimum front yard shall be 30 feet. 40 feet for structures on lots fronting on major arterials and major collectors as designated by the official thoroughfare plan. Edgewood Road is classified as a secondary street and has a 40 feet wide right-of-way, which is substandard for the street classification. Code Section 1155.13, variance states in part, no non-conforming use of neighboring lands, structures, or buildings in the same district, and no permitted or non-conforming use of lands, structures, or buildings in other districts shall be considered grounds for issuance of a variance. In order for a fence to comply with city code on the Stollard property, a fence within 40 feet of the front right-of-way line would need to be limited to 3 feet. At a distance of 40 feet or more from the front right-of-way line, a fence could be up to 6 feet high and continue along the side and rear property lines.
All right, thank you. Mr. Burns, should we handle the two requests separately, or should we handle them as one request? What is?
I mean, you can choose to do it as a 1 foot for that, or for an entire fence of 7 feet.
What about, so the one thing I don't see is that the gates are 8 feet tall, is that correct? Are the gates 8 feet tall?
I think it's the posts.
Yeah.
The posts.
Because there's no request in here for that. This does not.
It's the posts that connect the fence. The fence itself is 7 feet, the posts, I think.
What about the gates? Because the initial said 8 feet on the gates.
The gates are 8 feet, that's all the gates we could get.
It's,
Well,
so I mean, we.
we're here already.
Okay, well, so should we address that as?
Yes.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion from the board. We should probably do I would say the height of the side and rear yard perimeter fence to 1 feet above the code, which is 7 feet. So that'd be for the side and rear yard. Is there a motion regarding the proposed variance request before us?
I move that we accept it as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Blankenhorn, call the roll.
And is this for the entire fence?
This is the height of the side and rear yard perimeter fence. Just that. Which is number 1 in the request.
Okay. Ms. Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Percy,
Yes.
Mrs. Simpson,
Yes.
Mrs. Arianata.
Yes.
All right. Then the second request would be for the, trying to decide if we do the, should we do the gates as their own thing, or, yeah, let's do the second request as noted in the application, which is for the height of the front yard perimeter fence to a height of 7 feet over the permitted 3 feet. Is there a motion regarding the proposed variance request?
So moved.
Ms. Boucher is making that motion to
Yes.
approve the variance request. Is there a second? Ms. Arianata seconds. Any additional discussion regarding that request? Ms. Blankenhorn, please call the roll.
So this is for the front
To be,
fence to be 7 feet.
Correct. Instead of the required 3. Or permitted 3, sorry.
Ms. Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Percy,
No.
Mrs. Simpson,
Yes.
Mrs. Arianata.
All right. And then lastly, the request for, is there 1 gate or 2 gates that are 8 feet tall?
There are 5 gates,
There's
5?
none of which shows from the street.
We need you on mic, please.
There are 5 gates, none of which shows from the street.
I understand, but there are 5 8-foot tall gates, is that correct?
They're all in the sides.
Okay.
are they, are in the front yard or in the side behind the house?
The first gate opening into the front yard is, I haven't measured it, but I believe more than 100 feet from the right-of-way line. It opens into the front yard. The second gate is onto our terrace, which is, I can show you exactly where it is on the map if you're interested.
The first gate is right here,
Mhm.
and it opens this way. The second gate is right there. Third gate is right here. There's a gate right there at the garage. This one and that one are wider. These just allow, these others only allow pedestrian passage. And then there's a gate right over here so that our neighbors can come and see us.
So it would be, the request would be to allow 5 gates that are a total of 8 feet in height. I
And
would
they're all
enter,
they're behind this,
uh-huh.
the setback.
So they are not in the setback, but they are 8 feet in height.
Yes.
So the request is for 8-foot tall gate. I would entertain a motion regarding the proposed variance request.
I move.
We have a motion from Ms. Simpson. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Arianata seconded it. Any additional discussion? Ms. Blankenhorn, call the roll.
Ms. Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Percy,
No.
Mrs. Simpson,
Um,
Mrs. Arianata.
no.
All right. With that, is there any additional cases before us today?
I do not have anything.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move.
Motion. A second.
We're gonna we have 30 days to issue a written decision based upon the votes. and
Is there
we
a
will do that.
second?
For adjourning.
Yeah, I'll
Yes,
send
I
it to you,
second.
Brett.
Sorry.
You moved second. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Sorry, I didn't, I
You're
thought you heard
adjourned.
me.
Thank you for your time.
So tell me what's going on. I haven't seen
For the side,
Oh my
Orias's, on the front
Look,
Sorry, I'm not trying to be
rude.
One yes and 3 no's on the gate. Then you'll let me know.
Yeah, that'll be a written decision.
Everybody's still
So that
sick.
you
I mean,
can
going through their
have that,
that
which is what tripped us up
As you
last
said, you
time
had
because
4
there was no
Yes.
decision.
Yes. So
So,